All right, so today we're going to talk about the topic of the recession, which is going on most likely for the next year or two or more, and its relationship with you as someone who collects, as well as you maybe as a person who is thinking about investing in collectibles or is already in some way, shape, or form invested in it, whether it's emotionally or financially, right? And if you don't want to watch the whole video, the TLDR, which is always the answer that I give everyone when they're asking the question of should I invest in collectibles or should I buy this item that might be very high cost, thinking about its value going up in the future, the short answer is always no. The long answer is no with caveats, right? And what I mean by that is if you actually look in the comments or pretty much anyone that's reached out to me where they actually watched a lot of my videos, they've kind of reached out and told me that, you know what, I wish I watched these videos a lot sooner and when I explain a lot of these topics because they would have saved a lot of money if they did watch the videos, right? So I did do a video like this where I talked about the 5 stages of speculative bubbles, and unfortunately not a lot of people watch this video, so I'll link it in the comments if you do want to check it out. But in this video I went in depth for half an hour and I talked about the 5 stages of how speculative bubbles work and in regards to collectibles and why you should never buy into hype, right? The TLDR is you always sell into hype and you never buy into hype. If prices are at its peak and it's very high, why would it make sense for you to buy at these prices, right? And we see so many examples of it in the collectibles market, no matter what category you're in, whether you're buying video games as, you know, an investment, if you're buying trading cards and as an investment, right? All these markets were at speculative highs for the past 2 years or so. And I've been preaching this over and over again that you should not buy into this hype because like all markets, there's ups and there's downs, right? If you're buying at a peak price that's already speculated for a price that's going to be for like years down the line, you're being taken advantage of as something called a greater fool. And the TLDR of what a greater fool is pretty much if you look at the card game market and collectibles in general, right? Whatever prices that has been reaching, whether it's $10,000, $100,000, $200,000 right now, people were buying into the hype rather than selling into the hype because they assume, oh, if I buy for $100,000 now because everyone's talking about it, then 10 years down the line, then it might sell for 200, 300,000, right? But what you don't realize is as the greater fool, you're pretty much hoping that someone else is gonna come along and harshly put, you're just hoping that someone else is a bigger idiot than you are to buy the things at the price that you bought it at. And again, right, in this channel, I talk about things where realistically, this is how it is. I don't care about whatever ego some people might have, like, oh no, you don't understand this, you don't understand that. But realistically, how many people in the collectibles market really comes forward and is honest about these things and go like, you know what? I was a fucking idiot for buying some of these things and it was overpriced. Not a lot of people do because no one wants to be the sucker. No one wants to admit they're a sucker. Everyone just wants to talk about how, oh, I sold such and such card for $500, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, right? But the same person might not tell you that they spent way more than that to even acquire those cards. So let's just say even if I sold a card for $10,000, whatever, right? But how much money did they put into it in order to sell that $10,000 cards, whether it be other cards that they bought that didn't perform as well? You have to consider these things, especially in the age of social media where, you know what, a lot of people are not honest about these things and they're just telling you whatever the highlight is. Or there's other ulterior motives like I spoke of many times on this channel where maybe some people are just selling things into the market and they're just trying to hype the market up and that is their business model. And you don't know that, which is why you need to be more knowledgeable and which is why I make these videos. So again, going back to talking about how should you deal with the current recession in its relationship to collectibles and should you invest in it? Again, no, you should not be investing in collectibles pretty much, especially if you're not, again, financially established if again you're not knowledgeable or want to spend that time to really delve deep into understanding these markets. And that's always been the case, right? If you understand these markets, you know when to get in and out of these markets, then yes, you have to be really savvy when it comes to this, right? And after I talk about these celebration boxes, I'm going to go over the things that I personally moved recently. And then you kind of get a feel of, I'm always talking about how these things go into practice, but I'll also talk about, how I went into these as well too. So let's talk about the ultra premium collection, the Charizard box. Everyone that collects collectibles probably knows about it to a certain extent. So these Charizard ultra premium boxes, they go for retail for roughly around 119, 120. So let's just say 130 with tax. And then on pre-order, these things were going for 300 to 350 because everyone thinks that they know what's collectible or what someone tells them is collectible and what's going to be rare, right? And again, this kind of goes back to you actually knowing the markets and actually being able to spend the time to understand them. So these boxes went from 300 to within 1 month, they dipped down to 150 pretty much now. And there's going to be more waves of this being releasing. So what's the lesson that we learned? Again, if you're the ones that bought these at $300 on pre-order because you really wanted it, $270, and because, everyone tells you it's going to be rare, it's going to be hard to get, so it's going to be worth it, I want you to understand that you lost money because you didn't understand the market. You didn't spend the time to understand it, and you just dived in based on what other people are telling you. So that's a lesson learned, right? It's a very, hopefully a small lesson to learn if you didn't pick up a lot of these. But as a lesson learned from this, you learn that the TCG market really depends on a collectible market in general. You need to know how rare something actually is. Rare does not mean that the pull rate on something is high or something looks really good and it's going to be stonks, or it has a waifu on the card so it's going to be stonks, like all these like stupid things. Rare means something that's very organically rare, right? Not because someone hyped it up to be. And we're going to look back to another example of why people felt like they know the market. So they built this perception of the price being at 300 because they saw the ultra premium collection from Celebrations where no one really knew. They knew it was going to be hard to get, but no one actually knew the numbers. So these things also retailed at roughly around 120-ish, which then skyrocketed to roughly around 300 to 350. And it's been sitting on that since its release in like winter of 2021. So what's the lesson that you learned from this? Is that, was it hyped up? Yes. Did it somewhat have an organic collectability to it that let it maintain that price? Yes, because people did not expect it to happen. They expected it to a certain extent that, hey, it's going to be hard to get. And it's still somewhat of a pretty easy thing to get because there's so many people holding on to it, which is why it's sitting at that $300 price point, right? Because it was somewhat harder to get. And it was unique in a way where if you understood, okay, it had these metal cards, which was never done before by Pokemon. So that's why it has that level of collectability to it, where it was the first of that category, as it was kind of the first of having an ultra premium collection that had these collectible promos in there, on top of the fact that, it was a celebration product where it was like an anniversary for Pokemon, right? So you had to understand all these things in regards to why something would be somewhat collectible to hold its price. Will it stay at this price? Honestly, with the recession going on, I see it potentially even going downwards to maybe like 250 and then maybe hovering still like between 250 and 350. Do I foresee it going higher than that? Probably not, because you also have to understand, right, when it comes to collectability of things, if something is mass produced, in general, it's not very collectible. Just because people is hyping it up and people are selling it for high prices does not mean that something should be priced at what it is. Just because some idiot bought it at a high price does not mean you should buy it at a high price, if that makes any sense. And talking about like, pretty much my own experience in, moving things in the market. So I've picked up a lot of these, like the Overlord cards where prior to, I guess, all the stonks and, you know, the market moving up. And I got rid of an Eins for myself. I got rid of one for 500, the gold signature one. I got rid of a Momon for 500, the gold signature one. And I want you to realize these things, right? Just because you're a collector of something does not mean that you can't sell the things that you have. Meaning that if you're able to let go of something, so that's the part of collecting that's fun, right? Where you could let go of certain pieces of your collection. If the goes up and someone wants to buy it, sure. And it lets you pick up other pieces of the collection, right? That you might be more focused on, or maybe just something that you really want. So I don't want you to have the misconception that just because you collect things means that you never sell things. And selling things is okay. Whether or not someone is going to buy it is a different issue, right? So if I sell something for 500 and you buy it, you're looking at, okay, so you either really want it, or in your mindset, you're thinking, okay, maybe it's going to go up and maybe someone's going to want to buy for 1,500. But if you're the type of person that buys certain things and go like, you know what, I'm buying it because I'm thinking that it's going to go up to a certain price. Again, you want to make the distinction that you're speculating. And unless you're very, very savvy in the category that you're collecting, it's very, very, very dangerous to speculate on prices, especially in collectibles, because there's honestly no guarantee. And in the current market, I do not recommend speculating at all. And that's the thing about collectibles too, that you have to understand that there's something called an opportunity cost. And if you're not able to hold on to a lot of these things for an extended period of time, then you're going to lose money because you're also going to let go of these items way earlier than you probably should, right? I'm going to give an example. So these Overlord cards were like, I don't know, like $100 or something like that, because no one cares about Momon. No one cares about Eins. And I was not going to pick them up for high prices because I like the anime, but I don't really care about it that much. And I picked up for reasonable prices, and I was able to hold on to it because I could hold on to it, and it really, didn't matter to me. But if you're buying this, let's just say you can't afford to buy an item and you're just holding on to it like, oh man, I hope it turns for a profit soon, or else I got to get rid of it. Then you're not able to shoulder that burden for an extended period of time to be able to hold it for a significant amount of time to a point where you're able to make money from it, right? As compared to me, I'm like, I could hold this for a year, 2 years. In this case, it was like, I don't know, like a couple years. And then finally, now I could sell it, and, it went from like 100 to 500. Do I see it as like that qualifies me to tell you that, oh yeah, you should invest in collectibles? No, because that's fucking stupid. And it's very, very irresponsible for people, to go like, oh yeah, I sold this many things, and then this means that everything's gonna go up in price, and you should listen to me, right? And I love talking about the Mushoku cards because it's another example of a category of things that did not go up. I've spoken in previous videos about things like Charizard. That didn't go well. And Mushoku, for example, right? Everyone's going crazy over it. I think the Eris was like sitting at, I don't know, like 500 or whatever it is, right? So I picked this up sub 200, and it's sitting at 200 right now. And, for someone, maybe if you were sitting on these Mushoku cards and you think, oh yes, Mushoku's going to be stonks or whatever it is, and then people are looking at the TDSP, and oh yeah, it's gonna keep going up wherever, right? And you're gonna realize that even if they continue to sell at 1,000, they continue to sell at 900, the people that are speculating that is gonna go for like 5,000, 6,000, Black Label, whatever it is, you have to realize that as someone who bought it at these peak prices, you're speculating that it's gonna continue. Once again, you're speculating that it's gonna continue to go up. But again, I hope the recession is making a lot of people realize that if you're buying at a peak price that someone already speculated on, you're buying at triple, quadruple, or whatever it is, you're entering at that price point and assuming the risk for someone else. So they already let it go to you, and it doesn't matter to them because they tripled their profit. But for you to go from triple to triple of a triple or quadruple of that, or even let's just say, even if you make double of a triple, you have to understand realistically and logically how hard that's going to be able to, for that to happen. Let's just give you an example, right? So if you bought something from someone, I don't know, like a can of Altoids for, I don't know, $20 because someone told you, you know what, this is a rare Altoids tin. You already bought it at almost like 10 times whatever retail is, right? And then you're going to assume oh man, if I bought this for $20, then in a year or two, I'm hoping that it's going to be $50, $60. And then when you put this into context, you'll realize how ridiculous that is, because you don't even know if this was worth $20 to begin with. It's not like you buy like a stock, you buy, you know, like a bond or whatever it is, because there's a predetermined value, right? I want you to understand that when it comes to collectibles, there's no predetermined value for any of this. It's just whatever you think it's worth, whatever someone tells you they think it's worth, and then you come to a middle ground in between and go like, okay, I'm gonna buy for this price. But you have to understand that just because you bought it at that price does not mean it's worth that price. You could buy something like this Roxy TD for $1,500, and tomorrow if you try to sell it back for $1,500, you're not going to be able to. Maybe you might not even be able to sell it out for $900. You have to understand that, and unless you're willing to understand that, unless you understand pretty much these basics of collectibles in general, we're not even going to talk about investing, the basics of collectibles in general and the nature of it, then you have no business in even thinking about buying and selling and investing in collectibles. So at the core of it, what I want you guys to understand is when it comes to the collectibles market, there are winners and losers. And I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about the category and the things that you collect. It's almost impossible for everyone to always pick winners, and that goes across to all things in life, right? Whether you're investing in stocks, securities, right, bonds, or whatever it is. If it was possible for us to always pick winners and always pick the winning bid on anything, then everyone would be millionaires, right? Same as it goes to collectibles. If everyone was supposed to choose, you know, an Evolving Skies card, like the Umbreon VMAX, for example, right? Which I don't recommend anyone buy this because there's so many of them. And again, this kind of dials back to knowing the market and whatnot, right? I don't recommend anyone investing in these. People are buying out the market for them at like 500 right now, and they're supposedly going to keep going up. Don't buy these. But I digress. So for every set that's going to be considered good, you're going to have a lot of sets that are going to be considered bad. Are there fundamentals like, you know, how popular a character is, how big the print run is, how much of it is actually going to get printed, how many people were collecting these things at the time? Then you factor all these things like, okay, maybe there was a lot of people that weren't expecting this set to be performing really well as compared to the previous sets, or maybe a set is unpopular but a lot of people didn't buy it, so maybe that might be a factor of something that might be going up, right? So you could be very, very educated and you could make guesses. Of course, it's educated guesses, right? But does it mean that you'll always be right? No. And if anyone tells you they'll always make a win and pick on things, then they're flat out lying to you. They're full of shit. And, you know, just because other people are successful in some things does not mean that you could follow in their footsteps or you're getting the whole truth. And especially with social media, with things like that, I show you, you know, things like that I've bought that, you know, didn't go up in price, and I end up letting it go for pretty much the same price or less. And that's kind of the thing when it comes to the current market, right? So with the current market, you look at things like, I don't know, like a random card like the Mikey SSP, for example, right? No one's going to buy into it. No one's going to care about it. And Tokyo Revengers is a set that not a lot of people went into, and perhaps maybe a lot of people do not care about. But you're gonna look at cards like, okay, maybe if you picked it up for very, very cheap, people are selling it for $400 or $500, and you picked it up for very cheap for like 200. During a point where we have recessions like this, if you're financially able to hold on to some of these items for an X number of times or extended period of time, pretty much, then yeah, it could perform well for you. As opposed to if you moved into all these markets, no matter what you collect, and you spent a lot of money on it and you bought it at quadruple the price and someone sold this to you for like $700-800, you might not be able to hold on to this item for as long as someone that's held it on for just $200, because the person that bought it at 200 has the luxury to go like, you know what, if I sell it at 300-400 and people are willing to buy it, great, right? But if I don't manage to sell for 400-500 and I just sell it for 200, or if I even sell for 150, I sell it at a loss, half of a loss, right? My loss is not going to be as big as someone who bought it for PSA 10, Black Label 10, or whatever bullshit, right? I want you to understand that. If you enter at a low price point, you could pretty much just wipe your hands and go like, you know what, call it a lesson or whatever it is. But if you're these people that get suckered into hype and buy into hype, and you want to let go at times like these during the recession, then you're taking a very, very, very big loss, which I'm assuming a lot of people are taking very, very big losses on it. Hence why I was talking about how, oh, why is there so many people that are getting into, like, I don't know, getting hit by cars and have emergencies happening? Because they're letting go of collections when they were holding on to these things when they couldn't afford to do so, pretty much. So that's just something that I want you guys to keep in mind, especially during times like this. And one more thing I want to touch on before I end this is I'm going to talk more in depth about this, but I want you to realize what happens when you're not knowledgeable about markets and you end up buying into hype in regards to these markets. A very, very, very big example was the graded video games market, which is completely like exposed in so many ways, where you had games like the Mario 64, which sold for $1.5 million. And you had all these people jumping into the vintage video game market, suddenly going like, oh man, if I buy these sealed copies and these graded copies and stuff like that, I could replicate this sale. Now I could be a millionaire. But you have to realize, lo and behold, a year later, you know, these things are barely selling for a fraction of whatever they were selling for. Fraction meaning from 1.5 million to like 100 to 200,000, and it might even go further down. And then you want to put yourself in the shoe of, okay, if I was the one that bought it for 1.5 million, we're gonna not talk about shilling and all this other stuff. If you're the person that bought it for 1.5 million and it's dropped to 100,000 or less or whatever it is, right? You have to realize this is a really good example of what happens when you're not educated on a certain topic and you're buying into hype pretty much, and someone else is profiting from it because they're selling into hype. And then you learn the lessons of things like, you know, just because something makes a one-off sale for a high price does not mean that is the market price. This isn't stocks. This isn't bonds. There's no set price on these things. There's pretty much no regulation. So you're not protected in regards to any of this. So no one's going to feel bad for you that you lost over $1 million because you're an idiot that bought this for 1.5 million, right? Everyone's just going to laugh about it. And which is why I make these videos. So, you know, people learn from these things and know that, hey, you know what? Collectibles is a very, very, very fun hobby, and you could get a lot of joy out of it. And you could make some money on it as well, too, on the side, like if you're smart about it. But there's so many pitfalls that you have to look out for. And I really hope that by making these videos, I'm able to help a lot of people out there. But yeah, that's pretty much my analysis on like how to approach the current market right now. So TLDR, if you're able to hold on to certain things, especially if you bought it for a low price and it really doesn't bother you, then hold on to it. And then if you're willing to sell it, you know, and then you're not selling at a huge loss because you bought it at a low entry point, then great. You know, you could recoup your costs and you could let someone else take on the risk while taking minimal losses. That's an option as well too. If you're some person that bought these things for black label times 50 the price, then you probably learned your lesson and realized that, hey, you know what? I was probably a fucking idiot for buying it. And sometimes in life, you gotta learn these lessons. And unfortunately, not everyone listens, right? But now you know, okay, in the collectibles market, there really are no guarantees. Things might sell for a high of a high, but it doesn't mean that it's going to stay that price and the next person that buys it is going to buy it for higher than you did. Even if you break even, you're not really breaking even because you're paying fees on top of that sale as well too. So you're at the current moment, you're either holding on to things because it really doesn't bother you and you're not really taking that much of a loss, or you're selling back into the market to at a loss, or trying to at least gain close to break even so you can exit out of a hobby that maybe you weren't that interested in, and people are just roping you in because of, you know, the hype and the idea that, oh, these things are going to be worth a lot of money. And if you're looking to buy into it, I don't recommend buying into it, especially if you're just purely investing in it. It's a good time to buy things maybe if you purely enjoy and there's parts of your collection that you want to complete. That's perfect. One thing I would say, stay away from complete collections where you're completing full sets. I don't recommend that. That's a topic for another time. But if you're looking to buy things for cheap, now's pretty much a good time. I wouldn't buy them at high prices just because cash is king right now. Cash is king. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today. I hope this helped you guys kind of get an idea of like how to approach the current situations. But yeah, that's it for today. Thank you guys for watching. I really, really, really appreciate it. And in case you guys don't know, I do stream on Twitch sometimes as well too. I'm going through Resident Evil 8 at the moment. Thank you everyone that's been actually stopping by and just saying hi as well too. It's pretty fun when you guys come and hang out. Other than that, yeah, I'm gonna continue making the videos. Of course, like kind of going at my own pace as well too. Just because, yeah, there's just a lot of things going on. But other than that, yeah, as always, thank you guys for the kind words. Thank you guys for always, you know, showing your support by watching the videos or just like leaving comments and letting me know that you enjoy things. Or if there's anything that I could do better, let me know. I know there's a lot of topics that it's kind of sensitive, to be honest, when we're talking about, oh, you know, buying and selling collectibles. And there's a lot of people that are actually just like very, very, very financially invested in these categories, which is why sometimes there's things that you don't want to hear. But with things going on, especially with the recession and all that stuff, it's things we need to hear, especially because when people are spending significant amount of money just because of whatever YouTuber or whatever social media people are telling them that things are stonks, when, you know, there's things that can make people lose money. I honestly feel like there needs to be more truth out there and more people that are just honest about these things. But yeah, that's it. I'll catch you guys next time, and thank you guys for watching as usual. Have a great day. Take care.